So here we are, folks, going across the Bay Bridge to go into downtown San Francisco to Luscious Garage Hybrid Specialties. Haven't had my Prius for, it'll be 3 weeks tomorrow, as we were awaiting a main hybrid battery pack, which we will discuss in just a moment. It's fixed, folks. That's right, after not having my Prius for over a month and a half, it is back with a new service bulletin that we will now talk about. You saw my last video, the '08 Prius went into service limp mode on January 27th, and that was initially for what was an ABS accumulator pump, which turned out to be much more than that. This thing had catastrophic failure after catastrophic failure, which led me to taking it all the way to San Francisco, 75 miles away, to a well-known Prius shop, at least in the Prius forums, called Luscious Garage, which we will now get into as soon as I go back inside. Okay, folks, that's right. We are back for another episode of Prius Talk. Believe it or not, the most popular videos on my channel are those pertaining to the Generation 2 Toyota Prius that I own. My first video that I ever made with my buddy Andrew. We're doing it live! My first video that I made with my buddy Andrew racked up over 10,000 views as to why you should own a Generation 2 Toyota Prius. So I've gone the distance with this car. I have spent more money than is probably logical for a car for this age and mileage, but I'm too invested now. I certainly make a good enough income to afford a new Prius or even a slightly used one, but I am also very cheap, and I did not want to spend $28,000 or more to buy a newer low mileage Prius and have to make a payment. So what I did is I ran the cost on the money that I've spent on this car since I took it into the shop on the 27th of January. And Kat, I am trying to make a video here and people are going to lose interest and be very upset with the video quality. I had taken it, if you saw my video, which I think was 2 videos ago about the Prius, just get him out, take him away.
Okay,
sorry, Mary. Come on. Pick him up and carry him out of here.
Get your big butt out of the way.
Anyway, I had first taken him to my regular Toyota repair place that I have taken the car to for regular fluid changes and brakes and whatnot. Specialized Automotive in Modesto. Toyota and Honda service only. And they claimed to be experts in the hybrids, and they said that they worked on them all the time. But they let me down. I had taken it in for the ABS accumulator pump, which I knew was failing based off of the symptoms that it was giving me. The brakes were groaning. The ABS light and VCS light would come on occasionally, but then I'd pump the brakes and it would go off, so on and so forth. So I knew that had needed to be replaced, but they told me to wait until it had a complete total failure and went into limp mode before I actually replaced it. Beat it, kid! I'm making a serious video. So anyway, I had taken it in, and they replaced the ABS pump. And if you remember my last video, that was $2,300, and we went into depth. With the next day, the ABS pump, or at least I thought, all the other lights came back on, my red triangle of death and so forth. Back to Specialized Automotive, where they had it for another week trying to figure out what was wrong. And I was on a Vegas trip, and my trip was ruined because they called me and they're like, we think your transmission motor winding has gone bad, and we think it's time to look for another car. I was not about to lose out on the $2,300 that I had just spent. So I went on to Prius Chat and looked around, and I had seen these YouTube videos for Luscious Garage before on how to change your own Prius headlight bulbs. They're not that easy to do, but you can do it on your own. And that was another reason. I had just replaced my HID lamps with OEM units. That was like $340. I'd done the spark plugs, rear brakes, transmission flush, coolant flush, all this service in the last 6 months. I just paid the registration. It's like, I'm going to lose out on all this money because they're going to give me nothing for a non-runner if I trade it in for something newer. So everybody in the Prius chat forum said that Luscious Garage were the pros. They're hybrid specialists. So I reset the computer and it was able to get out of limp mode, and I was able actually, under its own power, to drive at 75 miles from where I live in Manteca, California, all the way into San Francisco. Fun fact, an hour and 15 to the shop, 75 miles without traffic, took me 3 hours to get home in traffic. So for those people that are super commuters and commute in the Central Valley over to the Bay Area, you're a better person than I. So, okay, bud. Serious video here. Come on, go out. Anyway, so they had my car for 2 days and they did their diagnosis. Luscious Garage, 475 9th Street in San Francisco. They are a flat rate shop. They do not do book time, so they charge you by the hour, and it is Bay Area prices. But I guess you get what you pay for since they are hybrid specialists, as it says right in their name. They don't have service advisors. That's the one complaint that I had about them. It was very difficult to get a hold of them. I called multiple times trying to get a hold of them, even before I took my car in there. And it was like day 2 of calling multiple times before they finally picked up the phone to get back to me to even set up an appointment. Same thing, they have a text line. They would get back to me days later when I would text them and ask them questions. So since they don't have a service advisor and the mechanic is the one responding to your requests and they're all busy, they're not very prompt when it comes to getting back to you. But they do good work. They were able to diagnose my Prius, and there had been another noise that I thought was related to the braking system, and the other mechanic in Modesto that claimed they knew what they were doing didn't even mention that. But I knew that this noise didn't sound healthy, and the other shop fix that noise as well. So now we're going to get into what was done. Something's wrong. Interview customer on vehicle systems. Confirm via test drive and service. Diagnostic time was $180. So what they determined, and they get very in-depth here, pictures, diagrams, they were able to confirm that the load test for the battery was going down. The car was made in April of 2007, but it was sold as a 2008 model year. So the battery was 15 years old, and it was the original OEM battery, 212,000 miles. And I'm trying to see if they have a chart here. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but they have a battery cell chart, and the battery was on its way out. So the other mechanic had misdiagnosed it and said that the transmission had failed, which an OEM transmission was going to be over $5,000. I wasn't going to spend that much, but I ended up spending as much as that with all the repairs that I have done since the initial ABS module failure. So what they determined was wrong was the hybrid battery pack, and I was kind of at their mercy because the car was not really drivable. I could have asked them to reset the computer, but it was such a hassle to get it there. I was just kind of like, it's there. You guys were able to diagnose it when the other shop misinformed me. So they recommended an OEM Toyota pack. It comes with a 5-year warranty. It's double the cost of a Green Bean refurbished, because my buddy Jose had did a refurb unit and it was like $1,500 through Green Bean. The OEM Toyota battery was $23.35. So it was certainly more than a refurb, but it's got a better guarantee from Toyota. It's a 10-year rated battery from Toyota. That took 2 weeks to get. COVID timelines, folks. So the hybrid battery pack was replaced, and the other noise that I thought was related to the brake system was a 3-way valve thermal pump. And it was just this zoot, 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 this electronic motor noise that would cycle off and on constantly. And a lot of vehicles with a regular conventional engine, it's using vacuum power and stuff like that to pull the coolant into the reservoir and then pull it back out as needed. This one has an electric pump, so that had failed as well. So between the diagnosis to determine that the other shop was incorrect in their battery, and he pulled the fluid in the transmission, it wasn't burnt, there was no metal flake in it, so the transmission was deemed to be fine. They replaced the battery pack, their diagnosis time, plus the thermal coolant valve. So I was into it for a grand total of, stop, you're getting into my video, $4,053. So between the $2,300 for the first repair and the $4,053 for a new thermal three-way valve and a OEM hybrid battery pack plus by diagnosis, I was into it for over $6,000. But guess what? All my lights are off, and I've driven it over 200 miles now, and nothing has come back on. So the Prius is fixed for now. The big thing that causes the failure is lack of transmission fluid, the transaxle assembly or whatever. It's two big motors plus a planetary gear set. If you don't, the Toyota recommends 100,000 miles, but you know, the transmission does wear and tear over time, and the bits of debris that will get in there will short out the motor windings. I changed the transmission twice in the 75,000 miles that I've owned it. So just do your maintenance. I don't feel sad about the battery pack repair because it was 15 years old. And I felt like if I could get 300,000 miles out of this thing, which is another 80,000 more miles, I'll be happy. So yes, I spent $6,000, but it will help me get 80, 90,000 more miles out of this car over the next 3 to 4 years. I felt like that was worth it in the short term versus financing a car 30,000 plus for a newer low mileage unit with the way the car market is now. So yeah, it was expensive, but it was shorter payments than buying a $30,000 Prius. So that's really all that I have to say at this point, folks. We've gone the distance with this car, 212,000 miles. Basically, all the major components have been replaced. The only things that are original mileage are the engine and transmission. So maybe those will be the next things that'll go out. And at that point, we'll have to decide what we're going to do. Until next time, we'll see you then.